Have you heard the latest news about Grayscale and the SEC?
Forward momentum here for a spot Bitcoin ETF. We're just getting news that a D.C. Court of Appeals sided with Grayscale in its lawsuit against the SEC. This was after the agency denied Grayscale's application to convert its Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, that's GBTC, into a Bitcoin ETF. Check out shares of GBTC. Looks like they're up about 15% or so. This fund had really traded at a discount to Bitcoin amid fears that the fund would need to be wound down potentially if this ETF application wasn't improved. You can see it surging today on this news. Coinbase also, which is listed as a partner in a lot of these Bitcoin ETFs, it's up double digits as well, up more than 14% at this point. Bitcoin getting a pop here as well. It could pave the way, guys, for the first of its kind ETF here. Analysts have seen this as a way to really open up the floodgates to retail traders. It would allow the everyday investor to get access to Bitcoin in a brokerage account, for example, and make it easier to allocate to crypto.
It's a big win for the cryptocurrency industry, and we're here to tell you all about it. That's right. The U.S. Court of Appeals has sided with Grayscale against the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, which denied the company's application to convert its Bitcoin trust into a spot exchange traded fund. This is a huge step forward for the cryptocurrency industry and could pave the way for more widespread adoption of digital assets.
I'll tell you what happened here. They got caught up in their own logic. They were under pressure to approve a Bitcoin ETF. They didn't want to because the concerns about manipulation on these Bitcoin exchanges, legitimate concern. So they said, okay, we're not doing that, but we're going to approve a Bitcoin futures ETF. And the court saw through that. The court said, these are like products. You approve one and didn't approve the other. You can't hide behind the idea that this is a regulated product because it's a futures product. The court saw through that, and that was the logic trap. The D.C. court agreed with Grayscale, and they said the Bitcoin exchange traded product is materially similar to the Bitcoin futures exchange products that the SEC had already approved. The court said, I'm quoting here from the court case, the denial of Grayscale's proposal was arbitrary and capricious because the commission failed to explain its different treatment of similar products. The court concluded that the NYSE ARCA had presented substantial evidence that Grayscale is similar across the relevant regulatory factors to Bitcoin futures ETPs. The commission failed to adequately explain why it approved the listing of two Bitcoin futures but not Grayscale's proposed Bitcoin ETP. In the absence of a coherent explanation, this unlike regulatory treatment of like products is unlawful. That's a pretty harsh condemnation here. So where does this leave a spot Bitcoin ETF?
This ruling holds paramount importance in the ongoing saga of spot Bitcoin exchange-traded fund approval. The creation of a spot Bitcoin ETF has long been a goal of ardent digital asset proponents, and this ruling could bring us one step closer to achieving that goal.
How big of a decision is this on Grayscale?
It's massive. This has been a years-long pursuit for Grayscale. Remember, it has been fighting the SEC's decision, and now it has the courts in their favor. If you look at the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, this is the main entity that would face a conversion. This is one of the longest standing, largest trusts holding Bitcoin in which retail and institutional investors have been able to gain exposure for many, many years now. You are looking at a discount to net asset value really narrowing here. At this very moment, it stands at about 24% under its net asset value, but that is expected to narrow as they get closer to the ETF conversion, which has really become a main thesis for investing in this fund. And beyond that, as you're saying, there is a whole host of other ETF filings in the pipeline, and this is boding well for those firms. I will also say that in addition to the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust finding some love on the heels of this decision, you are also seeing Bitcoin itself up above 27,000. It's almost 5% jump in the market right now, because the idea here is that by a potential conversion here for the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust into an ETF, it could draw massive adoption from financial advisors, retail investors. Think about how much money on the sidelines could be sitting there from the likes of the large wirehouses that could become more comfortable about putting their clients into a regulated ETF exposed to Bitcoin rather than spot Bitcoin itself.
Grayscale CEO Michael Sonnenschein announced the decision on Twitter and said the company is now reviewing the court's opinion as it prepares to move forward.
We do have a statement, guys, from Grayscale as well. They say, in part, this is monumental and a monumental step forward for American investors, the Bitcoin ecosystem, and all those who have been advocating for Bitcoin exposure through the added protections of the ETF wrapper. They go on to say the Grayscale team and legal advisors are actively reviewing the details outlined in the court's opinion. They're going to be pursuing next steps, they say, with the SEC. Grayscale, not the only one here with the Bitcoin ETF. You've got, or application rather, you've got BlackRock and Fidelity also in line. And this has been seen as a major catalyst for prices. Bitcoin in particular, the cryptocurrency has really been trading sideways this year as volume drops and a lot of retail investor interest has slowed down along with prices.
Grayscale CEO has been a vocal advocate for the need for a Bitcoin ETF.
Now more than ever, investors deserve the protections and familiarities of a Bitcoin ETF. I certainly think that when you look at an asset, investment vehicle like GBTC that is the largest in the world, it has, almost 1 million Americans that own GBTC. Why the SEC, why our regulators wouldn't take the opportunity to bring it closer into the regulatory perimeter seems like a really missed opportunity on their part, particularly in light of recent events.
While this ruling doesn't mean that we'll get a spot Bitcoin ETF right away, it's definitely a step in the right direction. It's important to note that this ruling does not mean that the Securities and Exchange Commission must approve Grayscale's application, only that it must review the application again. However, it's definitely a step in the right direction and could bring us one step closer. If you enjoyed, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. It really helps a lot. Also, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell for more insights.